Hi, welcome back to ODE YouTube channel. My name is Paulo and today I'm here to show you the review of another vintage ink. Today I'm going to talk about Parker Quink Red. And about Parker Quink Red, this is an ink that was available in several bottle or cartridge. So one of the kind of cartridge that the forms that you could find was these cartridges, the Parker proprietary sized cartridges. These were available in this kind of box of ink cartridges, the long ones or the short ones. Also they were available in red. I said it was a vintage ink. I'm presenting you a vintage ink, but it's not necessarily so vintage. It's just discontinued, at least these kind of cartridges. It was also available in this kind of bottle, the typical Parker bottle. It also has been available in this vintage, this one, yes, this is vintage. I don't know exactly from where, maybe from when, maybe from the 1950s or 60s. It says Super Quink permanent red ink. Nice, interesting bottle. This is 2 ounces bottle, and this is an interesting one. This is just 1 ounce instead of 2 ounces, so it's a shorter, a smaller ink bottle. And I'm putting this far away because now we are going to the big stuff. It was also available in these very large bottles of 20 ounces, more than half a liter. And when you open it, you got this little thing, this rubber pouring thing to allow you to fill smaller ink bottles from this large one. And I cannot fit this in frame. Okay, now it is. And finally, I also have this, and I know there are more variations about it. I have also this big 40 ounces bottle, which is the more than 1 liter of ink inside. And let me take this out, and I take this, and this is a very big and heavy bottle. You may see it here. Interesting that, oops, I hit the camera. This kind of labeling meets this same style, and the little bottles meet this same style, because this one has Quink in black and those have Quink in red. But this is interesting. Okay, enough from bottles, let's go to the ink itself. And the bottles are put aside, let's see the ink. So, just to tell you, this ink is currently discontinued, but you can still find it on eBay. And the prices of these bottles used to go for €3.50, the normal price of a regular Parker bottle. Now, the ink swatch. You can see that this ink is a red where it is more saturated, but it gets a little pinkish on the places where the saturation is not that high. About the comparison of this ink with some other inks, we have here Noodler's Suffragist Carmine, which is more pink, more saturated overall, but more pink. And we have here the Montegrappa Red, which I think it is also a little bit more into the magenta side. But I think they are quite comparable when you are writing with them. But this one, if you have a pen that will not put enough ink on paper, this will look very faint. Now, I want to show you also the swatch. And if I show it like this, you can see it is completely blank. Yes, because this is not water resistant. So all the color goes away until the top, and you can see it is really a red color. And here it doesn't look as pink as you can see here, but there is some pinkish tones. So now we know that it's not water resistant, and let me show you the pen that I chose for this review. And the pen, let me line up the engraving. This pen is the Parker Centennial Du Fold Big Red Classic. It has a vintage, it has a very big name, but it's the current version of the Parker Big Red in the Centennial size, beautiful pen. And with this beautiful big nib, one of my favorite pens. Now, we will go to the writing samples, and we have 4 papers tested as usual. And the first paper that I'm going to show you is this moleskin paper. And in this moleskin paper you'll see one of the problems with this ink, but also with this paper, is that the ink feathers a little bit. And you may see some places, let me check it. There are some places where the ink goes along the fibers of the paper. So if you are using a paper that is not that much fountain pen friendly, you may find some hard time to get a good flow. I think here on this E, yes, this is an E, you will find that there is some ink feathering. Also, on the back of the paper there is some bleed through, so this ink is quite good but not the best for cheap paper, let's call it like that. About the ink, something that I didn't talk about, there is no real sheen, and if you look here there is no sheen also. This is a very plain ink. About the shading, there's not much of shading also, maybe because of the paper and ink combination, but you can find a lot. Then we can go to the Navigator copy paper, and you will find that the performance is better. This is a little bit out of focus. Okay, now it's, sorry. You can see that there is no feathering, so the line is a little bit thinner, and I think the ink behaves better in this kind of paper. If we turn it to the other side, you can also see some bleed through, mostly where you put more ink. You can not see any line variation, not line variation, a color variation shading, but you will see that the color looks more saturated in this copy paper, white copy paper, than on this yellow, this cream moleskin paper. And then we go to the good paper, Oxford Optic paper, and this is a fountain pen paper, fountain pen friendly paper. You cannot see any sheen also here on the swatch, and the writing is not very saturated also, but you can find definitely some shading because there is some variation here on the tones in different letters of the phrases, which is good. About the performance on good paper, nothing to point out, behaves perfectly well. So interestingly, the paper where it looks more saturated is this navigator paper. And then we go to the final paper, and we have here the Rhodia dot pad. This is the same paper, Rhodia, where I made the swatch. And you can see that the drying time of this ink is 25 seconds, so it's not super quick, but it's not, it doesn't take forever to dry. In this paper, this looks much more saturated here. Much more saturated. About the line, the water resistance, there is none, but we already figured that out by through the chromatography. Now, for a final thing, some viewers asked me to show you the writing with different kinds of pens, and so I have here a Faber-Castell School Plus pen with a medium nib, and I'm just going to show you Faber-Castell School Plus medium with the same ink. And I have here my almost destroyed Faber-Castell Basic or Basic with a B nib, and this is Faber-Castell Basic with B nib. And finally we have here our Parker Centennial Fold, and this will write the famous phrase, "The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog." And with this paper and ink and pen, you can see that, let me put the light closer, you can see that the Faber-Castell School Plus M is actually thinner than the F by Parker, but both Faber-Castell pens are more on the dry side, even the B1, so you find it not much saturated the first stroke because the pen was kept for some time, and so the ink concentrates a little bit more, but then it gets more faded. Where you can find more interest on this ink is if you use a pen that doesn't have to be broad, because you have an example of broad but dry. You have to have a pen that has a wet flow, and there you can see perfectly the shading of this ink, and you can see also the ink much more saturated in color, which is also an interesting thing. So this was my review of the Parker Quink Red. It was a nice, interesting ink and quite inexpensive to find and to use, so I have Parker Quink Red, and I have a lot, as you have seen. So what are your thoughts about this ink? Did you ever try it? And I hope you liked the video. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll be back soon for more videos. Bye!